Hi, my name is Rich Nathan, and I'm the senior pastor of the Vineyard Church of Columbus in Columbus, Ohio. I was the church's founding pastor 22 years ago and have just had the great delight and privilege of pastoring the Vineyard Church. And what I want to share with you today is about building a church that I call a both-and church. Because in so much of our thinking, it's either this or that. A lot of the advertising campaigns in history that are really famous are all about the fight between either or. Miller Lite, tastes great, less filling, back and forth. The church has really struggled with holding things together right from the beginning. The early church battled over two basic questions: who is God, who is Jesus? Regarding who is God, some people so emphasized the threeness of God that they lost God's essential unity, and other people so emphasized his oneness that they missed his tri-personality. But eventually the church said it's both. God is both three and one, and they came up with the word Trinity. The same thing happened to the person of Jesus. Some people so emphasized Jesus' humanity that they lost his divinity, and others so emphasized his divinity that they lost his humanity. But the church eventually said, no, it's both and, not either or. Jesus has to be fully God and fully man as we see him in the Bible. He's one Lord, our Messiah. And many of the great theological questions have been resolved as both and. God is sovereign, and we have real responsibility. The Bible is divinely inspired, and it's of human authorship. Now, today we are at this crisis point, I think, in the church, where if you begin to emphasize one thing in your church, people accuse you of denying the other. And I always say, why can't we do both? For example, in our church, we have really taken a lot of time and effort and energy to focus on issues of poverty in our community. And there are some folks of a more conservative stripe in the community who say, well, because the Vineyard is focusing on poverty, we must no longer care about being a pro-life church. And I always say, why can't we do both? Why can't we care for the unborn and also care for their already born mothers and sisters and brothers? And that's what we try to do in the Vineyard. So we started a pro-life ministry that we call Value Life, in which we come alongside of women in the community. Last year we were able to come alongside of 300 women who are at risk for abortion. They're referred to us by hospitals and local clinics, women of all different creeds and faith backgrounds, races, immigrant status. We came alongside of 300 women, empowered the women by helping them find jobs, apartments, giving them mother mentors, and as a result of our church coming alongside of women and dealing with some of the poverty issues and empowerment issues, we were able to see 300 babies born alive. Now, nowhere do we find this great divorce between one thing and the other more than we see it between evangelism and social justice. Some churches are evangelism, we've got to rescue people from the hell of God's judgment. And other people are all about social justice, and they say, what difference does it make to rescue people for heaven when we live in such hellish conditions now and 30,000 people die every day of preventable diseases and hunger? And I just think, why not both? Why not save people from God's judgment and hell in eternity, and also save them from the hellish conditions of life in this world? Why not reach around people with the right arm of evangelism, bringing people into personal relationship with Christ, and also reach around people with the left arm of justice, assisting people to find jobs and helping people to get their GEDs and assisting folks to get free of drugs and alcohol and crack and crystal meth. Why not come along and help people and hug people with both arms? One of the things we've tried to do as a church is hug people with both arms by starting a community center in which we have job training programs and after-school programs for young adults, and we have degree programs and helping people to get their GEDs and recovery programs. And you say, why build a both-and church? It's biblical. The Bible emphasizes both and Christianity. You know, the prophet Elijah had two great confrontations in his ministry. One, of course, was against the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, and he challenged people's loyalty to God. But the second great confrontation we forget about was his confrontation of King Ahab concerning the field that he stole from Naboth. And there he was confronting the issue of social justice. Both and. We see both and Christianity emphasized in the great verse found in Micah 6:8. He's shown you, O man, what is good. What does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. Both horizontal, do justice, love mercy, vertical, walk humbly with God. Jesus emphasized two great commandments, not just one. Love the Lord your God, vertical, but love your neighbor as yourself. The Bible emphasizes both and Christianity. The great revivals of the church have been both and revivals. When you look back at the high water marks, when the church was at its best, when the Spirit of God came, they were always both and. People came to know Jesus, were personally converted and regenerated, but there was always social reform. And so in the Great Awakening with John Wesley and Jonathan Edwards, social justice and personal regeneration. With William Wilberforce and the great revival that took place in England, there was social justice, the relief of slavery, and the foundation of much of modern day missionary societies. Revivals have been both and. And you know that missionaries have always been both and. They haven't fought this battle of either preach the gospel or do social justice. I'm in so many settings, friends, where I find that if you talk about the one, people assume that you're going to neglect the other. I think that America is on the verge of revival as we bring two great streams together that ought never to be kept apart. Evangelism, personal salvation, and social structural salvation. This is true Christianity. God bless you as you seek to practice this in your own church.